All right, welcome everybody to the Ask the Expert session. My name is Dave Slusher. I am a developer evangelist here with ServiceNow in the platform development group. And welcome everybody. I am going to, as we're kind of in the throes of the Geneva release, I'm going to talk a little about custom application development. And I've been doing a lot of talking about the features and kind of demonstrating the feature set to people. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually sit here and develop an app while people watch, so that we can get a good demonstration of some of these new features that are in Geneva, but more than just like, as opposed to a kind of I've done a lot of dry pre-canned feature demos, and instead of doing that, I'm actually just going to start doing some of the work, and you'll see how things work with that. So with all that said, I am just going to jump in. I'm going to share my screen and just start doing this thing. So let's do this. So what I'm going to do is, in Geneva, you've got the Studio IDE. And when you come into the studio, so as you can see, I'm in here in Studio. And this is, some of this you kind of will recognize from Fuji in your scoped applications. You've got your develop, your download, your updates, for the applications that are installed on your system. You're going to see them over here. Now, what you're going to do over here is, since I'm creating a new application, I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to create one from scratch. And what I'm actually going to do is, this is an application I'm going to start working on and keep working on for my own purposes. So I have found that I need a getting things done GTD implementation. And I've got a system that I'm using with Evernote, but it's one of those things where anytime you use a tool like that that's not our tool, I think, why am I doing that? So I'm actually I'm just calling it, I think for right now, I'm just going to call it done now. And I'm going to create this application. When I create the application and I go to edit the app, this is now, we're looking at Geneva stuff. We're now in the Studio IDE environment. So you see a little pop up in its own window here. And you can see in the studio, you've got, before you've created any file at all, you've got a couple things: the go to, the create new, and the code search. Now I'm going to show you code search just because it's kind of neat. And one of the things I'm trying to proactively do is clarify some stuff that I know people have questions about. One of the questions people always have is, of this new studio stuff, what can you use with global applications versus scoped applications? So I'm going to show you a lot of stuff over here that is specific to scoped applications. One of the things that is applicable to global applications is the code search. You can now search, as of Geneva, you can search across anything, and you can pick the kind of table that you're searching. So you could look only in script includes, only in UI scripts. You could look only, if you don't check this, you're looking only in your current scoped application. If you check this, you're searching in all applications across all scopes, including global. So if you do that, you're actually searching for, you're searching in script includes, et cetera, the global space. That's kind of, I'm just showing that because it's cool. not directly relevant to what I'm doing here, but code search is something you can use it solves that problem where code is happening. You can tell by the effect there's a line of code that you can't find. You don't even know what it lives in. You don't know if it's in a script include. You don't know if it's in a UI action or a business rule. So you can search across everything. Now the thing is, you need to be in Studio to invoke that. So you have to pop open any scoped application that you've got developed on this instance. And when you do that, you can search across the entirety of the code of the whole system. So I'm going to go ahead and just start creating files of this thing. So I'm going to create my table. And what you see is in here is what we're calling the IDE. So we're going to begin creating application files. And as we do, each one is going to pop open in its new tab here. And I'm going to call this GTD task. And we're going to extend task. And we're going to create a module, do all the standard stuff. I'm really only going to create one table that doesn't exist in the task table. And I'm just gonna call it waiting for. So almost everything, by its very nature, all I'm doing really is creating a task for my getting things done system. So as you guessed, the built-in task table pretty much already does almost everything that I need. So, and one of the reasons I like getting things done as a demo application is it's really, if you knew anything about GTD, it's really well understood. So you don't have to waste any time kind of explaining what the system is. People know what's there. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. We will create our table. You'll see when that is done and the nav over here refreshes, you'll see now we have inside this scoped application. Now there are files over here. So we've got the table that was created. We've got roles that were created as part of that, application menu, modules, etc. All this was created automatically. So just from creating that first table. So at this point now we have an application, and I kind of am working on the verbiage of how to describe it, but I describe this as basically as a holder of a scope, right? So we're developing a scoped application, and what you're seeing here is the stuff in the scope. It really is the definition of the scope of that application. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a form now to interact with my system. So we're going to create it against GTD task. And I'm going to kind of simplify this. I don't really need that. I don't need assign to, because kind of by definition, this is going to be sort of about a personal manager. So we really don't care so much about assign to, because anything you see is going to be assigned to yourself already. Let's go ahead and we'll keep active. I'm going to put state over here, priority, and then I'm going to get rid of parent, and I'm going to add. That's not what I wanted. I want to add the field for waiting on. Waiting for. Did I call it waiting for? I meant to call it waiting on. I'll fix that later. And let's go through, and I'm going to change these to the kind of those well-known, understood, getting things done states. So the priorities that we're using are going to be where it's going to be in getting things done. Now, next, soon, later, someday, and then we're going to add the last one, which is waiting. And so I think probably a lot of people are familiar with getting things done, but the basic idea is you capture everything, and then you try to do as little as possible worrying about it. And so we're going to kind of keep track of our tasks in this system. And if, for example, we get to a task that's waiting on somebody else, we stop worrying about it. We just mark it as waiting for another person, and then just let it ride. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a UI policy for this. Let's do it this way. Over here. So at this point, I want to come look at this. Where's my GTD? So I'm looking at this as there's my GTD task. There's my form that I just created. And all right, where did I'm not getting the layout that I just created. Did I not save it? That could very well be the issue. That would be that would be helpful. All right. All right. So now I'm going to configure UI policy on this. And what I really want to do is I want to make, let's call it show waiting, let's call it show waiting. And only when the priority is waiting is this going to be relevant. And then when it is, what we're going to do is make the field waiting for, we're going to make it mandatory, and we're going to make it visible. We're going to reverse that when it's false. So we only want to see it when that's true, and then we don't even want to see any of that stuff any other time. So there you go. That's exactly what we want. And that's a reference field to sysuser. So at this point, kind of that form is kind of what I've got in mind. So we want kind of a, I'm got in mind kind of a minimal system here. Now I'm going to go ahead and add, let me switch back to my studio. And I'm going to add another, let's see, menu. What I want to do actually is I want to rewrite this thing. I'm going to call it my. Oop. My GTD tasks. And in the link type, I'm going to add some filters. I will only want to show it if the opened by is dynamic and is me, or if the waiting for is dynamic and me. So otherwise, I'm just going to see the lists of tasks that are either I own or are waiting on, somebody else's task that is waiting on me. And so now we're about to get into so I've just kind of been doing the shell stuff. One of the things I haven't done at this point is do anything that involves editing with script. And the script editor is one of the really cool new features that has happened, that's been added to Geneva. So now I'm going to start doing that. And unfortunately, I found this out kind of the hard way when I was prototyping some of this before, is that the autocomplete and some of the contextual stuff doesn't actually happen in the inbound email action script, which I'm not exactly sure if that's by design or not. And I have to reach out and find out if that's the case. So let's call this forwarded GTD task. Because one of the things in my Evernote implementation of this is that one of the ways you get your inbox clear is you can forward your emails to Evernote, and then they become items in there. So I want to do the same sort of thing here, as I want to be able to just forward an email to my instance and then have it become one of these GTD tasks, and have it begin showing up in here. So I want to basically, I don't want my inbox in my, if I'm going to do an actual GTD implementation, I want to have one system of record, which is, very familiar verbiage to ServiceNow users. Is I want this to be my GTD implementation of record. I don't want my email inbox to be that. I want it to only have, I want my action list to be definitive in here. So what I'm going to do is, in order to make this, I'm going to change it so that we have this inbound email action runs when it ends with this. I actually created a text edit shortcut so that if I take a subject line and I append this to the end, that colon create GTD. I want that to be the trigger that I'm going to use that email and create a GTD task from that. And the action that I want to have, so here's where we do the cooking show thing, is that I actually have, rather than spending this time watching me debug code, is I'm going to come over here and I'll show you some of the unfortunately, we'll see a little bit more of this in a second, but the you don't get all of the fun autocomplete here. Unfortunately, like in here, current is not autocompleting. I don't know why that is. I'll show you a script field that is autocompleting shortly. But this is just a very simple inbound action script. So if, it's only going to trigger when we have this create GTD over here. I'm going to both replace the forward with nothing and replace the create GTD with nothing. And then that subject is going to become the short description. The whole body of the email is going to become the full description. I'm going to set the priority to 0, which is nothing. I want it to have no default priority. Set active to true, and then just create, just insert the record. So we'll do that. And my last kind of piece that I want to do, well, I'm going to go ahead and before I show you the next thing, I'm going to get my email. And I've got some emails in here that I just want to use as, so I'm going to send them to my employee instance with that. And we will see if I actually did what I think I'm doing. The proof will be in the pudding very shortly here. And let's pick one more. These are just things I want to end up as tasks in this new app. I have saved that, haven't I? Yes, I have. Okay. So while that's chugging, I'm going to go ahead and do one more thing. And this is, I have not been at all shy about telling people that of all the Geneva stuff. So the Geneva developer features are all extremely cool. And so the Studio IDE, this right here, I love this. The fact that instead of having to navigate back and forth, I've got my table, my form, an API, my module definition, they're all up simultaneously. I can easily jump back and forth. Like just being able to, if you're scripting a rule over here and being able to go back to your table is just so, it's just so nice. So the scripted REST API really is where a lot of my excitement is going towards. And so I'm going to go ahead and just create the shell. So first you define, essentially you're defining kind of the top level outer container of this REST API. So I'm just going to call this GTD. Let's go ahead and submit it so that we get it going. And you'll see that this is now kind of the base path of the system. So on this particular system, instance, you would have the URL to the instance and then /API x snc done now /GTD. That's kind of the that's the root of the API for this. And I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of resources in here. And I'm not going to worry too much here about all the security and the ACLs and the content negotiation. I'm going to kind of leave all of that stuff at default. I'm going to create 2 different ones of these. And I'm going to call one list, up here, list tasks. And I'm going to again do kind of the head fake here where I've got some pre-written code and I'm going to put it in here rather than writing it on the fly. And you can see, actually, it's showing you actually one of the neat features, which is the real-time syntax check. It's showing me real-time without me having to go and press the button that I do, in fact, have a missing semicolon right here. So I will go and rectify that. And you can see, let me go ahead and type, sorry. Here is an example of the autocomplete that I was talking about before. So in this case, what we're autocompleting is the REST API request. in this particular window, that's the context that this thing lives in, and that's what this window understands what makes up this object. And so when you type request, you can get the various options that it knows about. So it knows that request has a body. You can do a get header. You can get the headers object. You can get the path params object. And I'll show you, if I type something that's just gobbledygook, that doesn't make any sense, then you begin to see this red, error indicator. So I actually find that I like a lot being able to see the real-time syntax. It helps a lot. And so if you let me just kind of run over what I'm doing here in this REST API is, in this case, it's taking no parameters. It's basically I will show you. It requires authentication. It's basically running as me, right? So so in here, I'm doing a GS get user ID to get the sys ID of the logged in user. I'm doing a glide record, and in fact, I'm going to have to come over here because I realize this is slightly different scope. Because the scope is a little different, I'm going to have to actually change the table name. And so the task table, I'm only querying on active records. I'm adding a query for the open by being my user ID. For my priority, I'm ordering by priority, and then I'm querying. I'm just looping over it and creating a kind of a JSON object to return. And I'm going to add one more API to this. And I'm going to add it, and I'm going to call it list task by priority. Show you and how you do this in a scripted REST API. So you can do this kind of templated thing, which is similar from a lot of API development schemes and various tools and middlewares that you use. So at this point now, priority is a parameter it's a position parameter that you need to give this. And if we come over here again with my pre-written code that I will do cooking show style, you see that here is me getting that priority is request path params priority. That's my way of getting this value out of there. So and otherwise this is mostly the same code with, in fact, the same error from before. So let me fix that as well. We'll make sure that our table matches. And otherwise, this is more or less the same code as the other API. The only difference is before I sorted on priority, and here I'm actually limiting it to a priority. So the other one will show you all the tasks for the user kind of in priority order. This one would give you just the tasks that are a given priority. So the numerical priority 1 through 6 from those GTD tasks that I was setting up. And otherwise, it's basically the same code down here. All right, so let me submit that. So now with all that said, let me come over here to, here is me logged in. And in fact, I realize that I also am going to need to do something for my user, because I'm going to need to give my user the role that we just created. So let me come over to here. And let me quickly give my user the role that it will need to interact with this. Get this role. Oop. Did not do that right. Say, what am I doing? Come on. Save. All right. So now my user has that role. And if we come over here, I should begin to see GTD. All right, there we are, my GTD tasks. All right, now my inbound email action did not trigger the way I wanted it to. So I was hoping that I would have a couple in here already. So I'm going to come over here and look at that. Oh, and you know what I didn't do is I did not, in my inbound email action, I didn't lower the priority. So I believe that I just created incidents off all those emails. So what I'm going to do over here is when to run. No, does it 99 for? I didn't have that role at the time I sent the emails. Okay, so I'm going to send a couple more emails to myself. And I suppose it's not impossible I do something wrong and I don't get this part to work. So I would like to demonstrate this working. Not have to admit defeat on that portion. As always, doing this with scrutiny is a different experience from doing it by myself in my little room. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm also going to, just in the interest of time, give myself, oh, wrong window. I'm going to go ahead and make one or two manually for myself as well. And, and in fact, I've got something about the permissions. I've got the ACLs not correct because oddly enough, I realize exactly what this is now. I'm overriding, my user does not have ITIL, and I'm overriding a bunch of ITIL fields. So let me come over here. I'm just going to go ahead and add, I'm going to go over here to my role. And I'm gonna, no, that's not what I want to do. Wrong button. In this particular case, I'm going to do this. And let us see that is sufficient for me to suffix role ITIL today Slusher. Okay. I'm going to have to log out. Possibly. All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. Oh, beautiful. Luckily, something worked while I was doing that. So while I was doing that, my inbound email actions actually did trigger. So there we have my emails from before. So, here's information about my high password expiring. Here's information about my company card. So these are, actions that I need to take. I don't have a priority on them, which is how I wanted it to go. They're not assigned to, like I said before, there's really not, I suppose what I could have done is for the waiting for, I could have actually not even had that and then just overrode assigned to, but I actually just wanted to create a new field for something. So let me take a second and see if I can figure out I gonna have to log out and log back in? Let's do that right quick to see if I get my ACLs. And all right, and I'm going to jump back to my GTD tasks. There they are. And beautiful, I can edit them. So that was my issue before. So we'll go ahead and create a couple of new ones as well. So let's create one that's priority next. I'm absolutely blanking. With that. So at this point, I've got something in priority next. What I want to do now is, this is kind of how I envisioned it in the first place, as a way that I thought would make a lot of sense is to do it this way. So what I've got in here now is, I'd like to get rid of this guy. This is pretty much how I was thinking about it. Is so at the point where you do your GTD review step, company card notification for Dave Slusher. I should do that. That's something I should handle soon. Let's call that one a next. Oop, why can I not get it down here? Well, we'll call it soon. That's close enough. And we'll the high password, we'll make that now. So at this point, this is almost exactly kind of what I was thinking about when I first did this, is that, this is now my system, is left to right. These are the things of importance to me. So if I look down this swim lane, this is the stuff I want to be happening now. If I've got 5 minutes to work on something, this is where I want to work on it. It's down here in the now. And if I fill that up, then I can start moving things. This at this point, this actually is a little superior to the system that I have got in Evernote. Now, what I want to do, and I can't easily do it from the task board right there. So I'm going to change one of these guys. Let's change the rename. I want that to be waiting on somebody. So let's wait it on our favorite example person of all time. Let's wait that on Able Tutor. So now I've got one that's soon, now, and waiting. And I'm going to come over here to, you know what? Oh, shoot. Actually, let's not do that. Let's wait this on System Administrator, because I realized that when I do the, I want to demonstrate the REST API. So when I do that, though, System Administrator, let me go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and create a couple tasks for him as well. So System Administrator and System Administrator admin thing. And admin thing. And I'm going to go ahead and wait this on. Now, if I look over at my Dave Slusher user, if I have done this right, my GTD tasks should now show my 3 as well as the waiting admin thing. And that actually is, that is how it's working now. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to explore in my REST API. So I want to look at this now. So I want to look at some of these records. So here we are in the, it's actually not, let me do, I don't want to do it that way. Let's go to, yep, wrong thing. Let's go to here. I want to do list tasks. If I hit explore REST API, we're now, get rid of that. This is now going to hit that API. So it's, system administrator is the one who's running this. So, and let's just go ahead and do JSON, and you know what? Actually, I can do this. I forgot that I can do it. Let's do this as another user. And see, I don't actually know any password in my system. All right. Unauthorized. I'm not going to mess with that right now. We'll do it as me. Undefined value has no. All right, let me run back. Let's see this. And let me see if I can figure out what I've done right quickly. Undefined line 17. I think I know which one this is. 17. SysID GR waiting on. Okay. All right. I'm going to, let's see if I can figure this one out. What I'm going to do actually is, I had some trouble with this particular line. I'm going to try the other one where I list tasks by priority. Let's try this one first to see if it lacks that problem. And again, JSON, send as me. And where's my little window to enter my value? All right. All right, I'm failing on as much as I like the REST APIs, I'm failing on both REST APIs fronts. I'm going to switch over to the pre-done one. See if I can figure out why that's not working. I'm going to just bop over here for 1 second and demonstrate these APIs. So this is what I was talking about before. And if I explore the REST API from this guy, this is what I was expecting to see is, this is my local instance running, and I'm not exactly sure why I wasn't getting this priority. The option to put in a value for this when I do the REST API Explorer. Go ahead and send this, and what you see here is the result of that, is that code runs, and it goes through and it looks up everything with the priority that was passed in. So this is just a standard RESTful API. And so if we go back over to this thing, you'll see that that's what it was, is we get the path priority out of that thing. We use that in our parameter. We look everything up. We crunch it into JSON, and or XML, and then return it. And if you've never seen that demonstrated, let me just go ahead and do that in 1 second. Getting the response back, once you've got it structured in that format, getting the response back in XML is as simple as just changing the request headers to ask for XML. So when you do it, then you actually get exactly the same information back, but in XML. And so that's not new to Geneva. That's kind of how this stuff has worked. But it's it kind of blows my mind every time I see it, how simple this is, and when I see how difficult it has been in some systems I've worked with. So that's kind of really in a little over half an hour, that's kind of the frame of what I'm wanting to do is there now. Is I've got a simple little REST API. And obviously I could add a lot more to it. I could add things that would allow you to post, to create tasks and or close them, from something external. These are just simple little reading get APIs. But when I come over to look at this thing, I can look at my visual task board. And I can see my records. I can manipulate them. I can use them to prioritize. I will, I want to get rid of that none, but this is where like all the inbound emails, when I would do my review step, first thing would be to look at everything that came in without a priority and then pick a priority that's happening. And I've got my waiting, one that's waiting on me, one that's waiting on somebody else. And, then I can reprioritize them as easily as that. And so that pretty much is what I wanted to demonstrate. And so I guess what I didn't do that I should do is let me show just a little bit more about the autocomplete. So let me just create, I don't have anything in mind for this to do. So we'll kind of do this on the fly. Let's call it test rule. So I'm gonna write a business rule around my GTD task. And so we'll make it advanced so we can get the scripting. And none of that matters that much. But I'm going to submit it. And you have to submit it because once you do, now the scripting window knows what that is. So at this point, we're in the business rule. We got current and we got previous. So current, and again, we're down into the autocomplete. So we're now looking at the autocomplete of GTD task. And so we see essentially it is task, right? It's got all the stuff that's on task as well as my waiting for. And so I am just such a huge fan of this autocomplete because I am one of those people who have hit that point in my life where I can't remember APIs. It's just my head has been filled up with various stuff, and I can remember a lot about Jack Kirby comic books, but I can't remember APIs at this point. And so so not having to remember them is what exactly is the syntax for adding that kind of query. And also let me show you too. It's an add query, and when you hit return, there it is, name, value, string. It will actually show you the parameters it expects and what it returns as well. So that kind of stuff saves me a lot of time. And let me also just show you. So basically anything that's in scope of this window is, let's go ahead and do that so that the syntax is happy. Anything that's in scope of this window, it knows enough to autocomplete. Anything it can kind of introspect. One of the neat things is that in context of this window, implicitly is glide system. So if I type GS, I've got the autocomplete on all the functions that are available in glide system. So, whatever, yeah, hours ago end, so that kind of thing is in scope. And so that's, I'm already finding this to be a big time saver. And so I'm doing about 97% less switching back and forth from the script window that I'm in to the API docs and back, which is how I used to do everything, including every single glide query, because there was nothing so simple I could remember it. So there you go. That's the framework of how you interact with this and how things work. And with that, I think I'm going to stop sharing. And this is my very, very first one of these, so I'm not. I don't know how you dismount from these. So this is kind of, I am, as I said, kind of a newly minted developer evangelist. I have not been on, I've been here, the ServiceNow for a little over 2 years. I've been the evangelist for a little over 2 months. So things like this doing content to get out to the developer community. If you send feedback to the developer site, you're probably, if you have a problem, I'm probably a good chance that I'm the guy who's going to answer your question. So
thank you so much, Dave. We do hope that your users and the viewers will be asking their questions, and hope to see you around on the community. So thanks so much, and we'll call it a day.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And I'll go to the community and look for any. I tried to proactively answer some of those questions that I knew would come up, but I'm sure I didn't address everything. So if you go to the community, I will try to answer any questions you have.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.